Hello, everybody. Welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Thank you very much for stopping by. So this is a channel of all things vineyards, all wine related. And if you are just wonderfully into wine, you'll find this very useful. These specific presentations are more designed for those of you studying wine, like it says at the top there, WSET Level 4 Diploma. But don't worry, if you're not studying it, you'll still find these very interesting and you'll learn as much as you want to. This is a series looking at the wonderful Golden State, California. And we're on series 5, looking at that large, expansive Central Coast. This is actually split into a 6-part series. This video and the next is going to be available as free content. Hooray! Parts 3 through to 6 are only available on my e-learning portal. You see at the bottom there of the slide, www.winewithjimmy.com. Lots of exclusive video content, lots of extra resources to help you with your wine knowledge accumulation. If you have any questions or comments or theories or anything like that, please do pop it in the comments section below this video. Make sure you click like and subscribe as well. Okay, let's rock and roll talking about all things Central Coast. So there you can see. So the Central Coast is a large expansive area. Here you'll see on this map, we are identifying up here. This is the San Pablo Bay and San Francisco up here. All the way down here, we have Los Angeles. So basically, it's the area sitting between these two important urban centers, San Francisco to Los Angeles, everything in between. So it runs along the Pacific Ocean for something like 280 miles. That's a long way. It extends about 60 miles inland as well for most of the time. And often, many parts of this area is cooled by marine air being funneled through gaps in the coastal hills and mountains. So through valleys, bringing in really priceless cool conditions. So we have multiple counties in play here, each of which has their AVA. But the major one we're looking at is the whole encompassing area of the Central Coast AVA. So this is a catchment AVA. And if you multi-blend from many sites, it's going to be listed by this terminology. All the other smaller, maybe minor, maybe major AVAs will be covered within the videos we're going through in this series. So a bit of topography for you to begin with. So mountain-wise, we are dominated by a range called the South Coast Range, and that includes many subdivisions like the Santa Cruz Mountains, the Gabilan Range, and the St. Lucia Highlands, or the St. Lucia Range. So here you will see San Francisco to the top of this wonderful topographical map. There is the Bay of San Francisco and San Pablo Bay. Now, as you head south down here, you'll find the Santa Cruz Mountains is what dominates the topography here immediately to the south. To the east, to the southeast of San Francisco lies the Gabilan Range. And then as you head towards the southern section off Monterey Bay, you'll find the St. Lucia Range as well, just to give you some idea of this topography. Very important because you have these wonderful large valleys being created. So Santa Clara, and we've got down here Monterey with the Las Salinas Highway. And with all of this, you've got that funneling effect that comes down from the Californian current into these areas. Really, these areas should be really quite hot. However, they are wonderfully cooled down by that coastal influence. So you will find heat in these valleys. You'll find cold air coming from the Californian current. And of course, you get mists and fogs developing due to the mixing of those two different air temperatures. Continuing more south as well, at certain points in the southern section, specifically Santa Barbara County's Transverse Ranges, the orientation of the mountains, instead of going mostly north to south or slightly sort of northwest to southeast, they start to head more west to east or east to west, however you want to say it. And you'll see that by this direction here. So this means it funnels the cool marine air into the growing areas, certainly in these much warmer areas around Santa Barbara County, which you see up here. So that's where I've got the big, nice blue arrow here. So instead of going more southerly, it's now heading into the land mass here. And that's what's baffling, because as soon as you start to think about heading towards Los Angeles, you're typically thinking really warm conditions, but many parts of Santa Barbara County are actually cool, which is fantastic to think about. Really, really interesting. Right, our AVAs that we're going to look at then that are smaller and found within the Central Coast AVA. So I'm going to cover the main AVAs like Livermore Valley and the likes of the secondary one, which is the Santa Cruz Mountains. We'll go through those very shortly, but I'm just going to run off some of the other ones before I do. There are AVAs here that you can see on this larger expanse here, which is San Francisco Bay AVA, about 1,700 hectares in that area. Santa Clara here in the more southerly section of this north part of the Central Coast. Quite famous because it, along with things like Google and Facebook, it does have wine production as well. So some old vine Zinfandel vineyards, but also things like Cabernet, Merlot, Chardonnay as well. There's another AVA called the Ben Lomond AVA, famous for the Beauregard vineyards. That's within the Santa Cruz Mountains. The Pacheco Pass AVA only has one winery. The San Isidro district, which covers about 1,000 hectares at the base of the Diablo Hills at the southern end of the Santa Clara area. And then there's the highly reputed Contra Costa AVA, which actually sits more to the east of San Francisco. And this is where you find some wonderful old Centurion vineyards of Zinfandel, Mourvèdre, and Carignan. But we're going to focus on our main ones. So Livermore Valley was what we were talking about there. We saw the map. Let's just go back to, actually, it's okay because we have a map here. So you see that I have included still the map on the left-hand side. So you'll see here San Francisco Bay, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz Mountains. Now, nestled in the eastern part of this north part of the Central Coast, we find the Livermore Valley AVA. This is actually in Alameda County. It's subjected to afternoon winds as hot air rises from the central inland valley. That's to the east of this area. It sucks in the cool air from the San Francisco Bay. The stony soils here are free draining, and that helps to keep vigor fairly low. And we have a variety, but it's most famous for Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon due to the likes of Wente Vineyards and Concurrent as well. Sauvignon Blanc and Zinfandel here. Typically wines are concentrated, fairly ripe, but with a lovely fresh acidity behind them. Certainly Wente Vineyards are very good at making beautifully bright and acidic Chardonnays. Let's talk more about those guys as well. So the AVA is one of California's oldest wine regions. We have initial plantings by Spanish missionaries in the 18th century. In the 1880s, a good 100 years after that, Wente Vineyards was established using Chardonnay cuttings that came from Meursault in Burgundy via Montpellier. So very important. That's through Ernest Wente that you see here in this picture. So quite important. Now, Concannon Vineyards was founded by using Cabernet Sauvignon vines from Margaux. Now, these are some of the oldest continuously running wineries in the United States. I think Wente might have that claim. And they operated even during Prohibition, producing the likes of liturgical sacramental wines. Now, they do say that Wente make the claim that about 75% of all Chardonnay grown in California, it relates back to their original cuttings brought in. And also the clones 7, 8, and 11 from Concannon are the same as well. Very famous, stemming from that area. I might say Concurrent earlier. Sorry, Concannon is what it is. So Santa Cruz Mountains. Now, we've talked about Livermore. We're now moving across and down to the Santa Cruz mountain range. So this is a part of the Coast Range that runs down the northern and central Californian coast. It's within 3 counties of Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, and San Mateo. Many of the vineyards are planted here, as you would expect, at high altitudes up to around 800 meters. It's often along a ridge line, providing a moderating influence on the daytime temperatures. At night, cool air slips down the slopes, forcing warm air upwards. So therefore, nights remain relatively warm and frosts are generally avoided in the Santa Cruz zone. Picture here of Mount Eden Vineyards, quite a famous producer here. You'll see their labeling of Cabernet Sauvignon says Santa Cruz Mountains on it. And here we in fact have Ridge Montebello, which is possibly the most well-known from the area. So Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir are the most important grape varieties here in terms of plantation. The AVA's eastern side, which borders the famous Silicon Valley, is warmer and better suited to Zinfandel, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Merlot. Overall, the wines are good to outstanding, many outstanding types, and they are mid-priced to super premium. Do look out for these two. Hopefully some of you have tried these, with Montebello being one of my favorite Cabernet-based wines in the whole of the world. Okay, recap time with a Google Earth 3D video. So there's the Golden State of California. And in blue, we're going to outline the Central Coast AVA, 280 miles long from San Francisco to Santa Barbara, and everything that is in between. So yeah, large area, and of course I will break it down in multiple areas throughout the next number of videos. Number of mountain ranges: Santa Cruz, the Gabilan Range, and the Santa Lucia Ranges run north to south, protecting many areas from the east and protecting from the wet cooling effect of the fogs. There you are, those 3 zones identified there. In the southern section, we have the Transverse Ranges. So the orientation now actually changes from east to west, and that helps funnel the cold marine air, making those places very cold around Santa Barbara, for example. Here is San Francisco and the Bay Area. We're just going to go about 60 miles to the east, and we find Livermore Valley AVA, moderated by the San Francisco Bay, and famous here for Chardonnay, specifically the likes of Wente. Concannon's Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, and Zinfandel, quite famous in these areas. Then we have the Santa Cruz Mountains AVA, of course, surrounding, or actually in the Santa Cruz range. High altitudes here up to 800 meters, famous for Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, and Pinot. But also on the eastern side, you'll find things like Zin and Syrah. Ridge and Mount Eden are very famous in this area. So there we are, finishing up our first part on the Central Coast, the northern section of it. Please do join me as we head south to Monterey County, looking at the St. Lucia Highlands and Monterey. If you do, once again, have any comments, questions, or concerns, please do get in touch. You can do so by commenting on this video below. Make sure you click like and subscribe. And if you find yourself in the UK and you're down in London town, please come and say hi and come for a glass, or bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Goodbye.